I really need to figure out why my computer won't stream for more than 5 seconds at a time. I don't even know if this is working any better. I really don't. I just know it doesn't keep disconnecting me every 5 seconds. So, I'm still getting this set up now that I have to, reset everything. Now as far as I can tell, it's like working perfectly fine. I need to find a way to go into my settings on my computer and figure out what is going on. Why it keeps disconnecting me. I thought it was just my internet, because that would, it would happen on my phone as well. But today, I just reset the modem. Everything's working perfectly. My computer was working perfectly. Then, the second I would try to stream, boom, everything would crash. Not like my old computer was. It wasn't that bad. But like, I dropped frames immediately. It would be laggy. And then I would disconnect. And I would disconnect every few seconds. Which is why I'm starting now and not 50 minutes ago. And I'm sharing this around. Now my phone is just getting its battery drained. Set this up. Don't freaking lose the chat. I hate this. Freaking streaming is all I ever have time for, and it's like my least favorite thing to do on my channel. It's a pain in the ass every time. But it's all I got time for. Don't hardly have time to do scripted videos and whatnot. Didn't I? Oh my god. For real, this is working perfectly fine. I'm not in about that. I'm in about the freaking stream I had all set up that I had to cancel. Now I have to delete, and it's not letting me delete it. Yeah, delete the video. Delete. There. Finally. I'll make sure I don't have this.
Whatever happened to the magnificent dinosaurs you see before you? Scientists have many extinction theories.
We'll go ahead and close out of that.
Watch one of the many videos on display and draw your own conclusions.
Alright. So, welcome, one and all, because one is the all right now, to 2021 Writers Workshop stream. I was going to just do this off the cuff podcast style with just a blank image and me talking, but apparently my computer doesn't want that, so I am instead doing dinos. Where's... Is this the one I was doing on stream? I think this is the one I was doing on stream. 127. I think that was when I must have created it. God, did I first stream this game back in November of 2019? Is that how long it's been? Shit, dude. You're old. It's been over 2 years. This might actually be my last Jurassic World stream. I'm gonna try doing one more after this sometime next week. That was my original plan. Because Jurassic World Evolution 2 is coming out in like 2 weeks. And when that happens, I am going to be streaming that a lot. Or try to, because I'm getting it on PC, but if my PC keeps acting up, I'm not going to be able to. And I'm not getting it on PS4. The PS4 version, everything I heard, it's a GIMP version. It doesn't look as good. I'm fine with that. But there's a lot of features that are on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X that just aren't going to be on the PS4 and Xbox One versions, for whatever reason. This park looks really nice. Trying to re-familiarize myself with the controls. It's been a while since I played it on PS4. Or PC for that matter. Alright. So this is a Writer's Workshop stream, so I am going to pick a dinosaur. And we are gonna just chill out with him. Let's go with, go with one of my big boys. Not my mean boys. God, it's been so long, I don't even remember what all I was trying to do with this park. Except that this was going to be the part that I stream on. God, Niger's so derpy. I love them. I love them all. Herrerasaurus, Ceratosaurus, Allosaurus. I think this is the biggest carnivore I have in this park right now. Alright. Chilling with my favorite dinosaur. The main purpose of this stream was to talk about managing your mediums. There's no one watching. I had it all set up. I'm so frustrated with my computer right now that, like, I don't even have my mouse pulled up. woke up, ordered food, and then started getting set up, and then just rotten start. Jesus Christ, people, shut up. So the reason why I want to go with this topic was because I recently saw Dune. I have not read the book. I know a lot about it through cultural osmosis. And I think I saw the 1984 TV movie by David Lynch. I don't actually know if I ever watched it all the way through though. Because I have very scattered memories of it. I think I caught it on TV a few times. What else do I have? Well, people start piling. Y'all pack yourself full of stories. Center tops. I just don't want to stand here talking at you guys, even though that was the original purpose of the stream. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play it a little bit. So yeah, I saw Dune, and I thought it was okay. I don't think it was a great movie. I don't think Dune lends itself to being a great movie, because if this is really an accurate adaptation, I don't think Dune is a good book. Again, I haven't read it, so I can't obviously judge the language, the linguistics, the flow, the prose, however you want to call it. I can't judge it on that merit, and the macro story stuff that I know about actually interests me. I like the idea of people creating this phony prophecy in order to manipulate the masses, and then someone going out of their way to make that prophecy a reality for their own benefit. It's it's just really interesting how, and the movie does not go this far with it. Apparently, this is some end game of the book stuff, because it's a book series as well. Dune itself is a long book, and the movie is the first half of the first book, and part 2 is going to be the second half of the first book, and then we'll see where we go from there. Apparently there's 4 or 5 books, maybe more. I'm actually going to look that up real quick. Another reason why I wish I was doing this on PC. It would be a lot easier to look stuff up. Dune book series. Dune Messiah, Children of Doom, God Emperor of Doom, Heretics of Dune. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so apparently there's 9 books. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 6 were written by Frank Herbert, and the rest were written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. I guess Frank Herbert had died. Let's see. Prelude to Doom was written in 99. Frank Herbert died in 86. So 1, 2, 3. So Frank Herbert would have actually only been around to write the first 4, but I guess he had the next couple outlined. Is my guess. Anyway, I don't think Dune is a great movie. I think it's alright. I think it's interesting. All the interesting stuff in it is just like visual stuff that it got from the books and thematic stuff that it got from the books. Like, there's nothing that actually plays to the strengths of movies as a medium, which I think should be the first, priority of anyone trying to make an adaptation of anything, is realizing what they have to do. What they have to do to make it work as another medium, because you're not going to get a one-to-one translation, because books are written with books in mind. Movies need to be made not with books in mind, but with the movie in mind. Like, it's this really simple thing, but you'd be surprised how few writers, directors, and fanboys get that. Let's start work on diving Kylosaurus. Let's try and figure out what all I have and what I was planning on doing. Let's try Ceratops. Using Kylosaurus already, so I already got that. Obviously the ones with the genetic coding I already have. Let's go with... create a raptor enclosure. So like exposition, I think, is the main thing that gets changed with adaptation. In books, you can kind of have exposition wherever you want. Now, there's nothing holding you back from having page upon page of exposition. Now, you should probably get the audience invested before you start doing that. Not all writers do. And there's some all-time classics that take forever to get going because of that. Moby Dick being one of them. Moby Dick, the first, 2 chapters is just all these nautical terms. They'll all come into play later. It's all very important stuff to know, to understand and follow the action when it starts getting into the action. But, it's not fun to read, and I would say it's not a great book either, because, you should feel invested when you read. Like, all these little details should be flavoring. They should be seasoning on the steak. The steak being the actual story and characters. I would say Lord of the Rings probably does this. Lord of the Rings is another one I haven't read. I've seen pages. I've read bits and pieces of it just in passing or whatever. I think I'm gonna kind of keep the theme here. Infinite Peter song, so I shouldn't have to worry about that. Shoo! Ugh. So anyway, just to kind of pick apart at Dune. Dune is ostensibly a non-stop exposition scene, and it gets redundant. Now, the reason why redundant exposition should exist in a book is because it is all words. So, when you have repeated words, it sticks in the audience's mind that, okay, these are the important words. Like, a biblical example, it would be John 1:1. You know, the very beginning of the Gospel of John, where it's like, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. That sticks in your mind as, okay, the actual words of God are important. Like, this is a living, breathing, you know, in biblical canon, the Gospels are the living, breathing text of God Himself as transcribed by the individual writers like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, George, Ringo. Every youth pastor ever has made that joke, by the way. Everyone. I've known a lot, and every single one of them has made the Beatles joke.
Picking up asset.
A lot of modern, like, copies,
En route to pick
not
up the
interpretation, but copies of the Bible will actually have, like, the words of Jesus in red and stuff. It's like, okay, these are the things you
Collecting
really
asset.
need to pay attention to. You know?
asset transportation underway.
And there's other ways to get around that. I've seen a lot of poets and stuff use, what's the term I'm looking for? Fonts.
Asset being transported.
Like, they'll use different fonts for different things, to catch the reader's eye. I always thought that was nifty. But anyway, so it makes total sense for Dune the book to just keep talking about spice because of how important spice is. You know, there'd be all the exposition with the spices be like, okay, this is like the most important thing in this world, so you need to pay attention to it and know all about it that you can. A movie does not need that. We see it. There are no words to get mixed up with the other words. And so it makes the repetitive exposition stand out just all the more. You start being very conscious of how many times they're saying the same thing over and over and over again. Like, yes, we get it. Spice is important. Yes, we get it. It's a desert planet. Yes, we get it. These shields, they work by bouncing fast-moving objects off of them, but slow-moving objects can penetrate them. Hey, you want to know a good way to represent that? Have literally the first scene with the shield, have Paul, like, smack his hand a couple times, and then have it bounce off the shield, and then slowly move the blade towards his hand, and it goes through the shield. Boom! We don't need another explanation of how the shields work. Stop explaining how the shields work every time they get used. That's my biggest problem with Dune the movie. It's fucking repetitive. And this isn't just a Dune thing. Because Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune, also directed Blade Runner 2049, which does the exact same thing and is not based on a book. There is no excuse in Dune, and there are even less excuses in Blade Runner 2049. In Blade Runner 2049, there's literally a scene where Ryan Gosling and Carrie-Anne Moss, they have a conversation. And Carrie-Anne Moss goes on and on about how important this mission is and how it's going to change everything without ever actually stating how it's going to change anything or why any of this matters. And then literally like 3 minutes later, Ryan Gosling is in the car and it repeats word for word. It actually replays the dialogue as he's just driving, expressionless. It's a fucking Naruto flashback. Even less of a Naruto flashback. At least Naruto flashbacks, they'd give you the visuals to go along with it, and occasionally reanimate the entire scene, because Naruto went on for a long time, so a lot of times when they would flashback to older episodes, they would have to reanimate it because, you know, it started before widescreen was a thing, and by the time that Shippuden was about like a third of the way through, widescreen was a thing. So anytime that they would flash back to part 1 or the first third of Shippuden, they would have to reanimate the scene to incorporate that 16:9 aspect ratio. Like, I don't understand how people defend Blade Runner 2049. I get Dune. I get people defending Dune. I get people I liked it just fine, honestly. I think it's like a 6 or 7 out of 10. If Dune Part 2 ends up being badass, I'll even go up to an 8. And those who have seen me, throw numbers around, they know that it's really difficult to get an 8 out of 10 from me. I've only given out like 10 out of 10s, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of movies. And only like a very like 0.01% of the movies I've seen have gotten a 10 out of 10. Got the Velociraptors now. Let's go with... I think this was all going to be like a carnivore section. So I'm going to go with Deinonychus next. But I like the design overall, but it just does not look like Deinonychus. You can kind of tell which parts I built before the sandbox setting updates, where it gives you the infinite Peters and infinite health stuff. After this, I think I'm gonna add. Here's Spinosaurus. Giganotosaurus, T-Rex. So let's go ahead and get those paths. Yeah. I will say, alright. So I'm gonna get into like kind of medium by medium and what you should look for in terms of, and this goes to writers and critics as well, like kind of a critic workshop as well. What to look for, like what are the strengths of the medium that you should be looking for when looking to do anything within that medium, but especially when it comes to adaptation. So books, you got a lot more room to actually explain stuff. You got the aforementioned pages. The overwritten prose isn't as important nowadays because of how prevalent self-publishing has become. It's always, good to kind of go hard on the prose, so long as, that's the kind of story you're going for. Obviously, if you're writing towards a younger audience, should pull back on the prose a little bit. Unless you're not good at the prose, in which case just write. No. That's something you kind of got to develop through the drafts. Get all your ideas out on the page first, and then touch up your prose through second, third, fourth draft, as many drafts as it takes before you're satisfied. That's simple enough. Then, movies, the most important thing you need to consider is time. Movies, while they are my favorite art form, they are the most oddly limited. And they're limited because of the financials. Like, there's financial reasons why they're limited. If you cost, every second of filming costs money. Every second of VFX work costs a lot of money. Like, they just pile up. And same thing with TV shows. But the main difference is that TV shows get broadcast on television. They can more or less be as long as they want. So long as the studio is willing to support it, they can keep, cranking out episodes. They get paid for by the sponsors and all that stuff. So they don't have to worry about their bottom line as much. Which is one of the reasons why TV shows end up looking cheaper. Truth is, a high-budget TV show will actually have a similar budget to a high-level movie, possibly even more, but, and I think I've stated this numerous times in the past, and it's pretty common sense thing, that budget is spread out over a greater course of time. Like, was it 8 episodes of The Mandalorian has the same budget as The Force Awakens, but The Force Awakens is going to look better because The Force Awakens is 2 hours, whereas Mandalorian season 8 or season 1 is like 8 hours. Like, there's the difference. And time is money. And a lot of these studios work with the same equipment. Maya is an industry standard animation software. All these people are working with a lot of the same VFX computers and VFX programs. The difference is, as always, time. And not just like raw, like 2-year production cycle versus 1-year
Delivery
production
complete.
cycle. Alright, let's do some simple math, because man hours are more important. If you have 50 people working on something for a week, let's do the math. Let's say that they're working an average work day of 8 hours a week,
Transportation.
or 8 hours a
complete.
day. So, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 people. That is 2,000 man hours. Now, you can take a small team of, say, 5 people, have them work long hours. We'll say 15 hours a day. Five people, 15 hours a day, and they're gonna work all 7 days. That's only 525 man hours. That is a little more than a quarter of what the other team was able to do. Talent doesn't actually factor into this much. Now, talent is important, and talent can be developed. You know, talent is what you start off with plus how much work you put in, or multiplied by how much work you put in. And it's just an analogy. The actual maths don't matter in this case. But at the end of the day, these movies, animation, games, TV shows, more so than books, they are collaborative efforts. And so the talent doesn't matter as much as the amount of man hours that get put into it, because you're going to have someone writing off their seal of quality regardless of who is working on it. If something is not up to the standards of the producer, it's not going to be considered finished. And if it is up to the standards of the producer and it still looks like shit, then, well, you got Genlock. Oh my god, Genlock's coming back. That's I am not doing podcasts on it. Y'all are gonna be lucky to get Ruby content from me anymore. Fuck, y'all are lucky I'm here right now, and not like, you know, just hiding away and enjoying my day off. The first Friday I have had off since I started this job, like almost 8 months ago. Let's get a big boy in here. Let's get Giganuto. So yeah, with movies and other than the time aspect, movies and TV shows, they pull from the same languages. Visuals, audio, soundtrack, acting. These are all things that can elevate a script, and sometimes a script calls on it and relies on it. Historical stuff in particular relies heavily on acting, and this is why. If you look at the Oscars, they get a lot of flack from, like, young people over being old and out of touch. It's not that they're old and out of touch, it's that the majority of the people who pick Oscar nominations and winners are actors. And so, because they're actors, they don't know what good direction or good music or good animation is, but they do know what good acting is. which is why the best actor, actress, supporting actor, and supporting actress tend to be the least controversial categories, at least as far as who ends up winning, because they do know their actors, and because that is what they value, that ends up being what wins. It are movies with great actors in them, or with great acting, like regardless of the quality of the movie itself. Like King's Speech, for instance. I think King's Speech is a pretty good movie. I think it's one of the better movies of that year, but I would not have picked it as best film because it's just kind of dull a little bit. Like, it's just not a super exciting movie, but it's got good actors. It's got good acting. Colin Firth, Jeffrey Rush, Colin Carter, they all do really good in the movie. That is the only reason why that movie won as many awards as it did, is because it had the best performances by actors of that year. And that's just what the people who vote for the Academy look for. God, King's Speech was 11 years ago. It seems like it was just a few years ago, but no, that was over a decade ago. Ugh. That was the same year that 127 Hours, The Fighter. That was a good year for movies. Not a good year for blockbusters, though. That was the year that The Last Airbender happened. That was a bad movie. But overall, it was a really good year for like Oscar type movies, or for just, you know, not even necessarily Oscar type movies, but just, you know, good movies. The good movies of 2010 were really good. You had Toy Story 3, Inception, The Fighter, 127 Hours, Winter's Bone, King's Speech, which again I thought was pretty good. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World came out that year. That was a good year. Now, as far as visual mediums go, again, like movies and TV, they pull from the same language. But if we're looking at film as a language, the dialect of animation, I think, is superior. Because in animation, you are not bound to the limits of physicality. Like, with technology and stuff, there's a limit to how good we can make this dinosaur look in live action. Like here, it blends in perfectly because it is rendered with the same exact engine and all the same technology and pixels and stuff as the fence, the trees, the grass, everything. Now, if we were to put this in a live action setting with photorealistic, with actual photographed people, it would look a little off. The uncanny valley and stuff. There's a limit to that. The cohesion, well, it just makes things fit a lot better. Sorry, Allosaurus is just so beautiful. Allosaurus is probably my favorite dinosaur, if you didn't know. I'm sure I've said it before, but like I have an Allosaurus toy on my bookshelf because he's my favorite dinosaur, and I've showed him off in streams in the past, or podcasts more likely. Hello, Rat Knight. So with animation, you can go harder on the esoteric, the dream, like. You can kind of do that in live action as well, but it's a lot harder to do in live action. Like, you can see this with, I'm trying to think of a really, really good example. Alice in Wonderland. The live action Alice in Wonderland movies by Tim Burton are not good adaptations. I wouldn't say butcher. They try doing too much with the source material, and it kind of loses the point of the source material. They try to make it Lord of the Rings, but with Wonderland characters, and I'm not, a big fan of that. But as far as bringing Wonderland to life, it does an admirable job. It looks weird and kind of dollish, and it's just a strange-looking movie. But I think that's as close as you can get to recreating Disney's version of Alice in Wonderland in live action. The animated movie, which is one of my all-time favorite animated movies, is really good. It does a really great job of bringing Wonderland to life, and it's got like all the dream logic that you would hope for. It's just a striking looking movie that goes all the way with it. This is why you see a lot of complaints about animation that tries to look too realistic, because it's just like Beowulf or the Polar Express. There's no real reason for that to be an animation. It's just ego, and it's just unnecessary man hours. Like, you're putting all the stress on all these people working on the movies for something that doesn't even end up looking good. Because it would just be cheaper, easier, and also look better to do Polar Express in live action.
Confirming asset delivery.
This has not been good for getting right to source. I had it set to where that didn't matter. Yep, that's good. Source also looks baller in this game. I can't wait to see him not factor in a Jurassic World Dominion. I really hope Jurassic World Dominion ends up being good. Since we're on the subject of video games, I guess I'll talk about that next, and then I'll get into some other non-medium related stuff. Video games are hard, but they're also really easy. The reason why they're hard is because they actually have more tools at their disposal than any other medium in existence. The problem that comes with that is that this also means that there's a lot more things that you have to think of and think through when creating or when writing for a video game. It's got all the strengths and weaknesses of animation, and there's the interactivity, but that interactivity is key because you don't actually have to write the most interesting, dynamic, overarching story in order to have a great video game story. There are some stories that are in video games that can only exist in video games, and those I think are the best. Your Deus Exes, your Bioshocks, these are things that play into the interactivity of the medium to tell its story. I talked about this a lot when I streamed Bioshock a couple years ago. The environmental storytelling, the way that exposition is handled in those games, the art design, the characterization of these people in the voice messages, and how you never, you rarely meet any of them. Like, all that plays into the strengths of the medium very well, and is very admirable. Just want to make sure that this is enough. Just want to make sure that this is big enough. Okay. I'm gonna actually put the aviary here. I already started it. T-Rex tricks.
Stand by.
So, for instance, I played a lot of Metroid Dread recently. I got that game when it came out. I beat it. I got a lot of the collectibles. I'm not good at a lot of games. If you weren't able to tell by my many failures in Ghost of Tsushima and what was I playing? Ultimate Ninja Storm. I think that game is fantastic, and I think it has a good enough story. No, I don't want that. I don't think I want that one either. 1, 2, 3. So I do want that one. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. But anyway, we're talking about the story. So, the story of Metroid is the same across all games. Samus goes to a planet, loses all her powers, has to build herself back up from nothing, while also committing genocide against a race that could destroy the universe. Now, that's the story. It's very simple, very clean, but through that, and through its backstory and its characterization of Samus, a lot of interesting emergent storytelling happens, and that's where video games, I think, are at their strongest, is when you have the emergent storytelling. The video game itself, or the video game story itself, should be just the context, the apparatus of the player-driven story. Because, like, the most interesting things, even in games with overwritten stories like The Last of Us, the most interesting stories with The Last of Us aren't everyone's identical experience with Joel and Ellie. It's the little things, like this one time where I pulled off this amazing headshot that actually went through 2 people's heads. Like that got me excited, you know, when I was able to pull that off. And some games lend themselves better to this kind of emergent storytelling than others. This is actually a really good example, Jurassic World Evolution. Because of when you're playing on like campaign and challenge mode and stuff, the different environmental hazards that you can run into, and how it creates these like conflicts that you then have to resolve yourself through like your ranger teams and stuff, and just managing everything. I have a funnier one with Planet Zoo, which is made by the same people. I talked about this last time during my birthday stream. Actually, I talked about this, where like I bought these 2 peafowls, a male and a female. I put them in their enclosure. I started working on all these reptile exhibits, like for my saltwater crocodile and stuff. And I keep getting these notifications about them mating. I'm like, oh, that's neat. You know, the babies are being born. That's a neat thing for this game to have. I look, and there's like 50 peafowl, and they're everywhere, and it's overcrowded. And because it's overcrowded, they're all like getting agitated. They're fighting. They're starving. They're getting sick. They're getting hurt. And there's protesters showing up. I was like, oh my god, this game is amazing. I hate it. That's kind of my experience with Planet Zoo. It's like, oh my god, this game is amazing. I hate it. It is too much. Like it's one of those games that like I will come back to every now and then, but man, it's a lot of work, and I don't like working 8+ hours a day, 6 days a week now. I'm back to the 6 days a week now because people are dumb. I kind of want to tell y'all because it's fucking scary and hilarious what happened at my work. But I don't like, you know, working and then coming home and playing Planet Zoo and feel like I'm still working. Planet Zoo feels like a job more than a game. Kind of works against it, honestly. Like this has a lot more like drastic problems.
Confirmed.
Mostly because in Planet Zoo you don't have to worry about the monkeys eating the guests, or like smashing through their gate during some bad weather. So long as you like properly build the exhibits, you should be fine. And everything you need to properly build the exhibit is in their like Zoopedia article. You don't have to release them and then adapt from there like you do with this game.
Asset collection request received.
That was the challenge in this game, is you have to release the dinosaur before you know what all they need. And you have to like rebuild the enclosure from there.
Commencing asset transit.
But even so, this game doesn't have nearly as much to it as Planet Zoo. So it's actually a lot more manageable. And so I think, even though it's not as good as Planet Zoo, it's nowhere near as deep. It is freaking thimble shallow compared to Planet Zoo. But I have a lot more fun with it. Because it's just, I'm not good at games. Like, you know, I've beaten BioShock probably a
Asset
dozen
has been
times,
delivered.
and I've never beaten it beyond like normal difficulty. Like, I've mostly beaten it on easy. I think I beat it on normal once. So majestic. I can't wait for Jurassic World Evolution 2 to come out. I'm so excited for that. And I'm excited for, another game I'm excited for is Prehistoric Kingdom. That game is, coming out in April, I think. No real room to build. I mean, I could build some like smaller enclosures, like one there. Probably build one here. Probably build one along here. Ooh, excuse me. So anyway, I'm gonna get into a few other topics. This is kind of turning not into a writer's workshop stream. I'm sorry, I wasn't super prepared. I originally wanted to do it in early November, but things are happening. I'm having to work 6 days a week again, so it's just not in the cards for me to have the really in-depth writer's workshop stream like I did last time. And I also want to, I'm coming up on my channel's anniversary. I want to get together with the boys and do something for that. Jurassic World Evolution 2 is coming out. I want to do something for that. Even if I just have to end up recording a first impressions video like I did with Psychonauts 2. I've been going for almost an hour, and I think that's a good point. I do want to get into at least one other subject, because someone was asking me about this when I was talking about, like, hey, anyone got any ideas for subjects I could talk about on my writer's workshop? Oh! Brett and I actually brought up the new Five Nights at Freddy's game. This is actually one of the subjects I was wanting to talk about. Not Five Nights at Freddy's, but the idea of the franchise, because Cowboy Bebop, the Netflix adaptation, is coming out pretty soon, and I was like really down on that when it was first announced and when the casting was first announced, but the trailers won me over, and I keep getting in arguments with people being like, just let the franchise die, just leave it alone. Like, it's been 25 years, people. It's been a quarter of a goddamn century. Like, this isn't going to undo or diminish the awesomeness of the original anime. And then other people are like, oh, the Netflix adaptation is too goofy. It's not taking itself seriously enough. Like, did you fucking watch the anime? Do you remember Ed? Do you remember what Ein is? Like, do you remember what the actual plot line with that was? And how Ein joined the crew? Like, are you fucking kidding me? You're gonna try to trash the Netflix adaptation, which isn't even out yet, based on it being a little campy? The fucking anime was based on, like, jazz and pulp noir. And not like the super serious pulp noir. I'm talking about like fucking Dick Tracy, which is what the Netflix adaptation is very much going for. It is very, very Dick Tracy vibes. Like the Warren Beatty Dick Tracy. Uh, and I've talked about this a lot when it comes to Star Wars, where people are too invested, studios in particular, the people who run the studios, they are more invested in trying to keep old fans rather than make new fans, which is why you got all the nostalgia bait in Star Wars and stuff, and uh, member berries. Remember this? Remember these things? Remember this that you like? Please love us. They're not actually out there making new fans. Um, good adaptations or good returns will good reboots. I don't know why I said returns. Good reboots, good adaptations. They'll build on what came before, but also not take for granted that this might be someone's first exposure to it. Beauty and the Beast, the Disney movie, is an all-time classic. Do you know how many fucking Beauty and the Beast movies there were before that? Hundreds, I am sure. And there have been hundreds since. Beauty and the Beast is a very old story that has been adapted into every medium you can possibly think of, in every single way you can think of, with every single spin you can think of, and even outside of direct Beauty and the Beast adaptations, you have Beauty and the Beast stories that are Beauty and the Beast, but with, like, under a different name, like The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water is just Beauty and the Beast with the fucking fish man and stupid, out-of-date, illogical, inaccurate, McCarthyism allegories. I don't like Shape of Water. It is a very, very dishonest movie. That is also dishonest with its own premise, because the McCarthy trials get lambasted as being like the Red Scare and being completely baseless and being evil and putting the working Hollywood millionaire down, when that's not even what McCarthy was doing. McCarthy did not run the Hollywood hearings. He ran the House Un-American Committee, which was rooting out communist spies in the United States government, not Hollywood. The Hollywood hearings were something completely different, and it happened a decade earlier. So there's that. Then there's also the fact that people like Arthur Miller are like, oh, it's just like the witch trials. Like, no, because those witches did not exist. There were no witches in Salem. There were no witches in what was it, like 15th century Europe. Those witches did not exist. It was all just people not wanting to be accountable for the stupid shit that they were doing, so they blamed it on witchcraft. Communists exist! And then they want to, like, and then Shape of Water wanted to try to have their cake and eat it too by having the fishman be real and just experimentate. It's dumb. It gets by on some cool visuals and the novelty of Beauty and the Beast if the Beast never turned back human. That's pretty novel. It's not the first time a story has done that, but it's rare enough to where there's still a novelty to it. But the whole McCarthy allegory in that movie was just so fucking dumb. Not as dumb as The Crucible, but still dumb. But anyway, my original point about franchises is that they are okay. So long as there is ground to till, so long as there are new things you can do with the franchise, God fucking speed. You know? Cowboy Bebop, it's a 30-something episode anime and a movie that's getting a live-action miniseries. Whoop-de-fucking-do. How many Wizard of Oz movies do we have? We have the 1939 classic. We have Return to Oz, which is I would say underrated, because everyone who has watched it loves it. It's an underappreciated movie, though. It didn't do well in the box office, and it's something Disney hasn't, like, cranked out every now and then. You know, every so often, like they do with some of their other properties. We have Oz the Great and Powerful, which kind of sucked. We have Wicked, the Broadway musical. We have that half season of Once Upon a Time. We have animated versions, live action we have like a dozen different versions just in film. And just as far as film and television go, we have dozens of versions of Wizard of Oz, and not a single fucking one of them have diminished the quality of the 1939 film. So why are people getting pissy about Cowboy Bebop? Even if it sucks, is it really going to change your opinion on the original anime from the late 90s? No. And if it ends up being good, awesome. Another freaking 8 hours of television that we'll get to watch and enjoy. But I really don't get people's conniption with stuff like that. Now, when it comes to stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Batman, I see a lot more of the conniption because they just have not gone away. Again, like Cowboy Bebop, it's been like 20 years since we've had anything Cowboy Bebop related. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has had 5 different TV shows in the last 15 years, it seems. Like, just in my lifetime, I know there's the, like, 2031, which was, very anime-esque. It took a lot of inspiration from the original comics, a lot more than the original show did. And that it's probably the most critically acclaimed one. And then there was, the CGI cartoon, there was the animated movie, and then there was the CGI animated series on Nickelodeon, and now there's the new one that sucks because they just made everyone Michelangelo. It's just not an interesting show by itself, and it does the Turtles a disservice. But yeah, like, I totally get being sick of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because it's been like 30 years and they have never gone away. There is always a TV show or movie coming out. Always. It has never taken a break. Same thing with Batman. We are on our fucking, like, 3rd live-action Batman and our, like, 50th Batman movie in the last 2 decades, because every single year there are at least 2 animated movies starring Batman and a 3rd animated movie featuring Batman, and then another animated movie usually featuring someone tangentially related to Batman, on top of Batman movies and Batman shows and Gotham, which is a Batman show without Batman. Like, just and a lot of them are the same. Also doesn't help Batman. This is the main reason why I do not give a flying fuck about the Matt Reeves Batman movie coming out. It is The Dark Knight with Robert Pattinson instead of Christian Bale. They even got another British Batman. That is how creatively bankrupt that movie is. They couldn't even find an actor of a different nationality than Christian Bale. They found a younger actor, and Robert Pattinson's a great actor, I like them. I have other than Twilight, which I don't even think it was all that bad. It was the script that was doing him a disservice. I don't know, as far as like actually portraying his character, I think he did a fine job in Twilight. And he's done a great job in everything else I've seen him in. He was the only good part of Tenet. He's not the only good. He's the best part of Tenet. But I do not care about his Batman because I am so sick to death of Batman. I loved Batman. No Man's Land is one of my all-time favorite comic book storylines. Like top 5, easily. Arkham City is in my top 5 favorite video games of all time. Arkham Asylum, up there as well. Arkham Origins, Arkham Knight, I think they're underrated. I think that they get a bad rap that they don't deserve. I think they're great games. I just bought earlier today, when I was on my way home from work, I had to do some shopping. I just spent $60 buying the entirety of Batman the Animated Series on DVD with all these special features that I am going to watch tonight. I'm going to watch this Batman the Animated Series DVD tonight. I love Batman. I do not give a fuck about the Matt Reeves Batman because it's just the Dark Knight all over again. I saw the Dark Knight. I love the Dark Knight. I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I plan on buying it someday. I haven't yet because I have it streaming. It's on some streaming sites that I have access to. I'm a little more hesitant to buy. To spend money on something that I can watch whenever I want anyway. Eventually I will buy those, just like eventually I'll rebuy the Star Wars movies all on Blu-ray, but so long as I have access to Disney Plus, I don't really need them. But again, I will eventually. They're on my list. I don't need the Dark Knight again, though. Give us something new. Give us something different. And if not something different, at least give us something that we haven't seen in a long time. You know what we haven't seen a whole lot in a long time? Can't be Batman. We had Batman the Brave and the Bold, and we had, there was that movie. Oh god, it had William Shatner as Two-Face. I think it was just called Batman Two-Face. But it was based on the Adam West Batman. Like, it was the Adam West version of Batman. Adam West reprised his role as Batman. Burt Ward reprised his role as Robin. And William Shatner was Two-Face. It was a good movie. Good animated movie. It was a good version of that Batman. You know, there's nothing special, nothing to write home about. But it was nice to see that. It was nice to have a return to that after this decade of dour, dark, gritty, edgy Batman stories. Give us more of that, and then go back to the dark stuff, if you feel so inclined. Mix it up a little. You know, go back and forth. Even if you're just going back and forth between those two versions of Batman, at least you're doing something. Sorry, I really love Batman, and I am really just... How the fuck is the disease contracted? I thought I had that turned off. Hold on. There you go, sandbox settings. No weather, day... No disease. It only keeps them from catching diseases. It doesn't, you know, delete the disease that they already have.
No diseased
Anyway.
dinosaurs detected.
So, the other point I wanted to make about franchises is that when it comes to video games, video game franchises are different because of the interaction that I've talked about before. With video games, you can absolutely get away with give me the same thing but better this time. Metroid Dread is a great example. Metroid Dread might be my favorite Metroid game. Yes, its overall story is effectively the same as Metroid Fusion and kind of like a Super Metroid. It's not, exact. The Ravenbeak doesn't hunt you down like the Super X Parasite. I think it's the SAX in Metroid Fusion. Like, he doesn't hunt you down like the SAX does. He doesn't hunt you down like Dark Samus does in Metroid Prime 2 and 3. So he's not as interesting on that front. And it is the X's, not the Metroid, so it's not quite like Metroid 2. And the Space Pirates, while getting mentioned, and Kraid does show up, they're not like the main threat, so it's not exactly like Super Metroid. But it's familiar. Now, you got a lot of the same beats and stuff as Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion. But it's slick, it's stylish, it's polished, and it's fun. It did a good job building on what came before. Which is why, usually you see this with every video game franchise. There will be a point where it just kind of peaks, and then everything after that is just kind of like, okay, yeah, you kind of already perfected this before. Like, Mario, for instance. I think Mario peaked with Super Mario World. I don't think there's been a great 2D Mario game since then, because there's nothing left to do with it. No, the franchise is done tilled. Now, when it comes to 3D Mario, there's still a lot that they can do with it, because the only great 3D Mario game is Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Jurassic World, as much as I like this game, it does leave a lot to be desired, and a lot of the things that I wanted in a sequel are in the sequel. We're getting custom aviaries, a lot more different pterosaurs. We're getting mosasaurs, plesiosaurs, ichthyosaurs, all the aquatic stuff. And we're getting far larger maps. Those are the main things I wanted in a sequel, and we're getting those. Now, of course, with more story-driven games like the Arkham games, Uncharted, you do have to kind of keep throwing out twists and stuff to keep it interesting. And gameplay-wise, you don't have to. Again, it's kind of this wherever your priorities lie. But I do think that every addition to a video game should bring something new to the gameplay table, if not necessarily. Like, if you can bring something new to the story table, do it, but bring new stuff to the gameplay table is a little more important, even in story-driven games. Like, to The Last of Us 2's credit, it does add new gameplay bells and whistles. Like dogs, the rope swing. Like, these aren't new things for the genre or for like this kind of story in a video game, but it's new enough to The Last of Us to where it does come off as a sequel that builds on the original. I think the original one is better because they are both story-driven games, and the first story is just a better story. And the new gameplay stuff in the second game just is not good or interesting enough to overcome the lackluster story. Rat Knight said, it's funny you mentioned that when it comes to Robert Pattinson as Batman, because I remember when that was first announced, a lot of DC fandom was pissed. DC fanboys always get pissed when a new Batman is announced, because it's never Carl Urban, because the DC fandom, they tend to do their own fan casting of Batman based entirely on whose jawline is the strongest. They don't, actually take talent into account, and so they got pissed at Ben Affleck. They got pissed at I wasn't like super into fandom culture at the time, but I'm pretty sure they got pissed at Christian Bale as well, and he ended up being great. And I was not alive for this, but I do know for a fact that people were pissed about Michael Keaton as Batman too, though that was because he was a comedian. Like, people my age and younger don't really realize this. Michael Keaton was originally a very accomplished comedic actor. He was kind of the Paul Rudd of his day. He was kind of that kind of actor, He was always jokey. He did a lot of sitcoms and rom-coms, and then he got cast as Batman. And like, huh? Are we really in for another Adam West? Ugh. And then they cast Jack Nicholson as the Joker. It's like, so you cast this very accomplished comedic actor as the Dark Knight, and one of the most accomplished dramatic actors of all time as the Joker. Okay? To put it into perspective, it would be like casting shit. I was gonna say Ryan Reynolds, but he kind of was Green Lantern. Yeah, it would be like casting Paul Rudd as the Shadow, and in the same movie, casting Daniel Day-Lewis as as a jester. That's kind of what it would be like. Lackluster said you should make a comic book list. I've thought about it. I thought about doing like a top 10 favorite comic book stories. But I would have a hard time just like picking. Because comics as a medium, comic books, manga, the Franco-Belgian stuff, I would have to rope them all in. And if I do that, then how exactly do I compare Arlong Park in One Piece to to like Secret Empire in Captain America? Like Secret Empire, No Man's Land. If I'm talking individual issues, Spider-Man No More, but that was just a one-off. Wasn't like a storyline. Marvel, it took Marvel a lot longer to get into the long storylines, and only ones I can think of that I really love are like Secret Empire and a couple of the Daredevil ones like Born Again and Devil in Cell Block D. Right, and I said cost Assassin's Creed. Honestly, I don't think Assassin's Creed ever reached its potential. Because they keep going in the wrong direction. Okay, if I told you that there was a game about a medieval hitman, what would you think? Now, have any of the Assassin's Creed games actually delivered on that idea? No. The closest one was the first game. The first game was actually about like the assassinations. It was about like why they assassinate, why they need to be assassinated, who the targets were, why they're bad, why you gotta stick them with a knife. And you had to like kind of plan your moves accordingly, like an actual medieval assassin. You don't get that in any of the other games. All the other games are just collectathons with button mashing combat. It's the Assassin's Creed 2 is basically just Arkham Asylum meets fucking Super Mario 64. And they've only gotten worse. Like by the time Assassin's Creed 4 was coming on, they were like so against the idea of this franchise being about assassins that they made a pirate game and then gave them a cloak and called it an Assassin's Creed. Same thing with like the last few. The last few are basically just Witcher clones with the Assassin's Creed title slapped onto it, and then Assassin's Creed Valhalla is just God of War is super popular and it has Vikings. Let's do a Viking game, and then have it not be a fucking Assassin's game. Like what does Ubisoft have against assassins? Like, you would think they'd be all about it with you know, it being their franchise. Yeah, exactly. He just kind of wears the hood whenever he's bored. Anyway, my throat is killing me. I've been going for a little over an hour. Over probably an hour and a half. I think I'm going to actually wrap it up. Oh, no. There's one other subject I want to talk about, and that is gender. Someone asked me how to write characters of other genders. And there are a couple ways to go about this. I don't actually put a whole lot of thought into it. I grew up in a house full of girls, so when I decide a character's female, I write them, like, you know, according to what I know about women. Which is, more than you think, less than you know. I grew up in a house full of girls, so I know what they're like, so I write based on them, mostly. I think that the idea, like, it's a very popular idea amongst, like, the anti-SJW crowd to just write a male character and then make them female. I don't like that. I think that does women a disservice. I think women are strong people in their own right, and I think there are inherently feminine qualities that are admirable. Like, I wouldn't call this a feminine property, but it is something women do. Did you know that women are the only people on this planet who can, like, grow an entire new life form inside their body? Like not to go a Handmaid's Tale on this, but, like, that's impressive. That's kind of cool, you know. We should kind of, you know, take stuff like that into account a little more when writing female characters, and not necessarily just make every female character someone's mom, but, like, you know, there's nothing wrong with women, unless they want to fuck dogs or whatever the meme is. But yeah, it really kind of depends, and obviously this is going to change with culture. Like, Japan, for instance, does not have as progressive of views on women as Western cultures do, and so their female characters aren't going to have the same qualities as a woman written by an American, which is fine. You know, because people exist. People like Sakura exist in real life. Whether you like those types of people or not is kind of up to you. There's the whole notion of like you see this a lot with critical communities, where they're like, oh, the writer should do this. Like, you're kind of forcing a story that the writer doesn't want to tell. If the writer doesn't want to tell the story that way, they're not going to. And even if they get forced to because they're editor or whatever, I'm just making this a little cool. It's not gonna be the same, you know. It's oblong, but so is the aviary. I noticed this a lot with writing, with how people describe action and stuff. I've gone on record saying that I don't like power scaling because I don't like the Versus wiki, I don't like the Versus fandom, I don't like these stupid, pointless debates on who would beat whose ass, because the story is about the story. Action should serve a story, not the other way around. This is why I despise Dead Fantasy, because Dead Fantasy is a story that exists only to facilitate the action, and because of that, the action is fucking boring. Doesn't help that it revolves around a bunch of characters that I do not give the faintest fuck about. But whatever. You know, if the story was interesting, it would actually make me give the faintest fuck about the characters, but it doesn't, because it's not. Shit, what was I gonna say? Yeah. I've noticed, I've been kind of rewatching Naruto. I found some reviewers and podcasters and reactors that I'm liking, and I'm kind of going through their reactions of Naruto and stuff, and their reviews of it, and I'm noticing more and more that people who binge watch stuff tend to like take things as they are a lot more, which is for the better, because a story is the story that the storyteller wants to tell, not whatever the fandom wanted that story to be. Like, even when there's retcons, it's just, it comes off, when you binge watch it and it's got a retcon, it comes off more as like you having been lied to, or you having been misled, or maybe the characters didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. Like, I bring up Naruto because Naruto, Kishimoto is the master of the soft retcon. There are so many, like, little retcons in Naruto where when you remember everything that's said, like I do, you see how many things changed as he wrote the story. So, an example is, someone actually pointed this out, because I didn't actually remember this exchange for a long time, because it's been a while since I've watched, it had been a long time since I watched part 1 of Naruto, but Shukaku is originally described as the reincarnate spirit of this monk who was sealed in a tea kettle, who hated the Sand Village. Now, come to Shippuden, you find out that Shukaku is actually the one-tail beast who was once part of the 10 tails and was divided from the 10 tails along with the other tail beasts, including the 9-tailed fox. They're all basically siblings. They were created by the same six paths, so on and so forth. That's a retcon. Then Kishimoto actually does something clever by making it to where this information is secret. Like the fact that Naruto, the world of Naruto is a secretive world, lends itself to these like really soft, ingenious retcons. So the prevailing theory, especially since like everyone thinks the Sage of Six Paths is a myth, and that no one alive is really sure about like how things actually went down, so it makes sense that they would have different theories and interpretation, because oh my god, that's how actual mythology works. You know? Like if you were to have something take place in ancient times but in the real world, you would think that there's a lot of retcons. No, it's just people having different theories and thinking different things. So a lot of people at the Sand Village did think that Shukaku was this monk who was sealed inside a tea kettle. And then you come to find out that the original Jinchuriki for this One-Tails was the monk from the legend that Gaara talks about back in part 1 of Naruto. That this monk who Gaara thought was Shukaku actually did exist, but he wasn't Shukaku, he was Shukaku's Jinchuriki. The original Jinchuriki. I think that's great. That's a good way to take these two different theories on where Shukaku comes from and actually make it to where they both work. Not by having them both be true at the same time, but by having the context fill in the blanks and the rest of it be like misinformation because the characters were misinformed themselves. But yeah, as I said in my like power scaling video, you don't actually know how two characters are going to stack up until they actually stack up. And so it's kind of pointless to try to debate and argue and predict stuff like that when you don't know what the story is doing. Like, I'm going to talk about this a lot more when Wano ends, because I've seen a lot of complaints about Luffy versus Kaido. You're like, how come Luffy is, getting to the second highest level in the second to last saga of the story? Like, gee, maybe it's because of the second to last saga of the story, and Yonko is the second highest level Luffy is going to attain. Like, did you think about that, Mr. Morge? God. I mean, I just said his name, so I might as well just go all out and say Mr. Morge is a fucking hack. Like, I had someone in the comments section of one of my videos asking me about like what my opinion on Mr. Morge was, and I brought up like his the raid will fail theory, which he up until like a week ago he was still fucking on. He will not let that theory go, even though all the evidence to the contrary, even though One Piece is not that kind of story. One Piece is not a tragedy. It is a comedy. It has some tragic stuff in it, but most of the tragic stuff in it happens in the backstory, which is actually very apropos for comedies. Comedy, oh god, I looked this up because I mentioned it in my next video. which is Quinn Part 7, uh, with the first spring. Comedy, it's a Greek word. It's a type of song. I think it means like a humor song or whatever. But the main driving force of comedy, or Greek comedy, is that at the beginning things start out shitty, but as it goes, things get better. Like that is what a comedy is at its heart. Popular example, and I think the example that when you actually think about, like, oh, this is what a comedy actually is, a traditional and old-fashioned comedy doesn't necessarily have jokes and gags. That's a little more of a modern interpretation of it, based on what the actual original Greek word is, which I think it's like humorous song again. This just kind of speaks to what the ancient Greeks found humorous. But the Divine Comedy, Dante's Divine Comedy trilogy, you start off in literal hell, and then by the end you're in paradise. Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso, this trilogy together form a divine comedy. Divine because you're going through heaven, hell, and purgatory, and comedy because you're starting off shitty and ending off great. One Piece is a comedy. Everything starts off like, oh my god, how is Luffy gonna possibly fucking beat this guy? He just got, annihilated. He keeps getting outclassed. Things just keep piling up higher and higher, and the stakes just keep getting raised, and the deck just looks stacked against them, and then they overcome odds, overcome the impossible together as a crew, and win, and live happily ever after, or until the next arc, where the cycle repeats again, because it's a comedy, and it's a serialized comedy, so it has these this formulaic loop built into it in order to keep the story going and keep the story moving at a good pace and good momentum. Because you see this a lot at the beginning of the time skip, where Luffy's just like annihilating everyone and there is no credible threat to him. He never like gets pushed or challenged in any meaningful way, and that is the main reason why Fishman Island and Punk Hazard are looked so down on in the One Piece community, especially the casual community. The hardcore fan are like, will be the ones that try to convince you that no, Fishman Island was good because it set up a bunch of stuff. Punk Hazard was good because it set up a bunch of stuff. Like, no, they're not good because setting up stuff is not good enough. That is not a story. A story is not exposition. A story is the action. A story requires things to actually happen, not just things to be explained. Which is why I don't think Dune is a great movie. It's just about things getting explained. Nothing actually happens. Though that's not fair. There are a few things that do happen in Dune, namely the fall of House Atreides, and they were doomed to fail, and then they fail, and they had to scatter into the desert. That's the actual story. Those are the actions of the story. Everything else is just exposition. Anyway, this was fun. I always get so passionate about these Writers' Workshop streams. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions or comments before I wrap this up? Lackluster favorite FMA character? Probably Scar. No questions? Oh, looks like someone just sent a message. Rat Knight asks favorite anime. I actually have a video of my top 30 favorite anime ever, and Full Metal Alchemist was actually number 1, I believe, on that list. It's either that or Cowboy Bebop. And then Naruto / Naruto Shippuden is number 30. But yeah, I did a whole video on that a couple months ago. '11th favorite cartoon anime. I don't fucking know. I don't have lists in front of me at all time. Like that'd be something for its own video. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up now. Thank you all for indulging me on this and bearing with me as I rant about Batman and Doom and One Piece. Next time, I think I will actually stream more of this. I might not. Again, this might end up being my last Jurassic World Evolution stream. It might not. I'm going to try to squeeze one more in before Jurassic World Evolution 2 comes out. Then I will do Jurassic World Evolution 2 First Impressions video. And I will also try to get together with the boys for a 5-year anniversary podcast. And my next scripted video will be Quint Part 7. After I'm done with that, I'm going to actually do an honest look at Ironwood. And then I'm going to try to do an honest look at Penny before I jump into Quint Part 8. Kind of depends on how I'm feeling. I definitely want to get Ironwood out of the way before the year is over. And before Ruby Volume 9 starts. I would like to do Penny and Ironwood, but I don't know if that's going to be feasible now that I'm back to working 6 days a week. Till then, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Wait, no, we got one more. Yeah, Rat Knight, join the Discord. It's great. Have a good night.